Okay. There we go. That's number 5.
It's actually number 4.
No, I'm counting mine.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that one.
See that one?
Rattle trap through lily pad roots. That's actually a smaller fish.
See, now that's the thing. You know, I kept telling people. I said, you know, that red rattle trap, then the stealth diver by Ambush. That's the hot bait.
They even see that. Got some audience here. I'm not trying to get hooked for this.
Well, I will say there are quite a few shad in this lake.
Man, I've never done that once, let alone twice in one day.
Now there's smaller shad too, and that's what they feed on, which is of course why we caught that bass. The same thing at Como on the shad bait. Same reason you do all kinds of places that have shad like that, because there's smaller ones too, and they look just like that crankbait.
That's a perfect example of how you have to work this rattle trap. You have to saturate the area. You get out on these flats with vegetation growing. It doesn't matter whether it's hydrilla, milfoil, lily pads, any kind of vegetation, especially early in the year. Once that water hits 50 degrees and it starts growing, the bass, it's like a magnet. They come right to it. But the idea, you're casting that bait so many times, combing those flats, that you're actually snagging the fish and hitting them in the back because you're making so many casts. It's like cast, move over an inch, cast, move over an inch, cast. And before you know it, you've gone around a huge circle making thousands and thousands of casts, and then all of a sudden the bass hits. It's not like they're smashing a rattle trap where, you know, you just throw it into a piece of tree, one tree, make one cast and they hit it. You're making hundreds and hundreds of casts to actually make the fish bite.
We're ending up the day down here at Red Mill, right outside of Lewis, Delaware. That's Route 1 going by.
Got 4 bass here. I need one more for my limit. 4 fish weighing about 11.5 pounds. I need that one more kicker fish to win this tournament. Got an hour to do it. I'm going to hit ledges with vegetation in all of the major spawning creeks. North Shore. See what happens. See if I can pull this one out.
This is a beautiful downstate cypress swamp. This is called Trap Pond. This is down on the right-hand side of Delaware, very close to Maryland border. It's one of the few standing bald cypress swamps there are. Very clear, blackish type water. Largemouth bass and chain pickerel are in here, along with yellow perch and various other chub type minnows and crayfish as far as bait fish. Quite a few cut off stumps and open areas that are very good. Up here to the left is one of the better areas. This is the upper 2/3 of Trap. Sun's starting to come up. It's a beautiful day. It's going to be about 78 to 80 degrees. Nice for April, first week of April, the end.
Early in the morning though, isn't it?
The water temperature here is 50 degrees in the morning now after all that sun we had the other day. We didn't get as much rain down here. We're rigging up some poles. We're going to be using some different lipless crankbaits, Ambush, Stealth Diver, Rattlin' Rapala, things like that. We're going to be using some creature baits, pitching them to the cypress stumps. Yamamoto creature bait, a pocket crawl, which is a fantastic bait. You can swim that too on the jig, which is what we've been doing. Had a huge bass come up after it yesterday, and I pulled it out of the water and he just swam away. Right as I lifted it up, he swirled out a nice 5-pounder. Pocket crawl is going to work very well this year in all the lakes and river systems. Now, it's quite shallow at the shore, and the average depth is about 3.5 feet in this lake, and there are some spots where it's 5, but this is typical of most of your Delaware and Maryland lakes and ponds. 5-6 foot main depth down, 8 feet maybe down at the dam in a little hole. But the general average depth is about 3 to 4 feet in most of the Delaware, Maryland ponds, except for the bigger impoundments of the reservoirs. So we'll see how we do here today, and we'll get back with you. We're going to work some jerk baits first, some rattle traps, and then we'll flip the soft plastics after that.
Downstate Delaware here at Trap Pond, which is down by Laurel. Terminator spinnerbait, throwing in that same color pattern that we're catching one on the rattle trap. That's a red with a little bit of black in it. Not a big bass by any means, but today's been real tough conditions.
That's the second one.
Yeah, the other one was a little smaller. We've flipped a lot of our traditional spots, used some jerk baits and rattle traps in places that we normally catch quite a few fish, and it just wasn't happening. This one's 13 inches. It's a keeper, and we said, what's wrong? We can't catch anything. And I said, let's go ahead, put on some confidence baits. For me, if you've watched any of the tapes, you know a Terminator is my confidence bait. I said, I'm going to go into real shallow water. This lake's got some dingy color to it that it normally doesn't have. I said, I'm going to go up shallow, try to catch a few smaller fish just to get an idea of what the fish are doing, get a little confidence, and then we can go back after the bigger fish. It hasn't been 15 minutes, and I've had 2 fish in less than a foot of water in about 10 minutes. So far I've achieved what I want. Let's get a few more fish, see if there's any bigger ones in here, and then we'll go back out and try to target some bigger fish.
We're down here at Red Mill, working down by the road again. We are going to use some different spinner baits by Spot Sticker. We're throwing the Ambush lipless crankbait, the Stealth Diver. This is a nice drop off here. The pads end out into about 5 feet of water.
Which is perfect. Nice little point. If you're going to catch a big fish right now, shallow and early in the season when that water temperature first hits 50 degrees, it's going to be out on these points of the lily pads, not all the way in the back most of the time. Most of the time they'll come out right on these points, use it as a staging area. Since these lakes don't have points like some of the reservoirs down south, they actually use the vegetation as though it was a point or a secondary point to stage on. Perfect ambush spot where they can wait for that bait that's coming out of the deeper water in the nighttime, that when the sun comes up, they come up in the shallows to feed.
Right off the main highway, Route 1, heading down into the beaches. Lewis is just 1.5 miles down the road. We're going to get one right out of here, I know it. There we go, that's nice.
Barely hooked. Barely hooked, just like a tournament here.
That's nice.
Not big.
No, but a nice fish.
Down here at Red Mill in southern Delaware. About 350-acre lake we have here. Now that fish hit on a 7-foot rod, crank and stick. Wow, this hook, we need some pliers. On a red rattle trap.
Pliers are right next to you.
And that fish hit just like mush. Didn't jump on the bait at all. If you weren't paying attention, you would have thought that you had hit a limb. I actually felt like I was just ticked the top of a limb, and then you just kind of felt this mushy feeling, and there was the fish. That's why it's real important to at least use fluorocarbon line, braid if possible, if you can get away with it, to feel those subtle strikes. If you had had regular mono with a ton of stretch on it, you may have never felt that fish. And then what you want to do, because these treble hooks, and a rattle trap, the bait itself lends itself to being thrown easily. You want to really play the fish, stick that rod tip down in the water, keep the fish from jumping. If you can, play him around the front of the trolling motor, slowly dip your pole in different angles. What that does sometimes when they're hooked on one hook like this, when you turn the fish the opposite way with your pole, it brings this second hook back and hooks them in their face, which gives you 2 hooks instead of 1. So let's let that fish go. That's a nice male. Nice little keeper. Take him in a tournament. Always want to have some of these X tools on hand. Make treble hooks very easy to get out of the fish's mouth. Plus,
and they float.
If I drop them, they float.